Hello and welcome to yet another episode of PubShorts. This is episode 77, titled Who Do You
It is.
Think You Are? My name is Dr. KK. I'm the Innovation Officer at Trinca and Inago, and I have with me Tony, who would introduce himself, the brand that is PubShorts, as well as why we are calling this episode Who Do You Think You Are?
There'll be no time left, KK. So I'm Tony O'Rourke, and I'm Vice President for Partnerships here at Inago. Welcome everyone. Hope you enjoy this episode. So PubShorts is this is episode 77. I can't believe we're at 77 already. This is a regular podcast which KK and I record at least a couple of weeks, where we talk about different aspects of the scholarly communication process, mostly around how technology and sometimes how policy affects research communication. And in today's episode, we've entitled this episode, "Who do you think you are?" Can I just say that, first of all, this wasn't my recommendation, because I'm not a fan of the Spice Girls, but I'll go along with it. So this takes its title from I think it was 1996, 1997. So I think it was released.
Yeah.
Well, no, the album was 1996. So
Yeah.
let's say the single was 1997.
Yeah.
Song "Who Do You Think You Are?" And it looks at that question of author and reviewer identity in publishing, because there's so many things happening at the moment. There's a new proposed verification framework coming from the STM Trade Association. We're seeing increasing numbers of fake attribution scandals, AI-driven surges in low-quality papers, gender gaps in authorship. There's all sorts of aspects going on, all sorts of things going on which threaten the integrity of the whole scholarly communication process. So we're just going to explore how knowing who you are is the first line of defense against research fraud.
Excellent, Tony. Thank you very much. And that's a perfect segue to our first story, and I'm shifting to it. It is I guess an update from Dimensions. It is called Dimensions Author Check. So basically, it is a tool for screening authors, reviewers, and editors, and it helps identify research integrity issues like retractions and unusual collaboration patterns. It is quick, and as per Dimensions, it's quick and offers transparency in publishing histories. And it can be used by organizations and institutions to protect their own reputation, and to institutionalize the best integrity practices. And basically, it confirms who the author thinks they are, or author states they are. And
Yeah.
I think this sort of innovation, it is coming up. I mean, we ourselves are working on such a thing, and it is a very good thing. Dimensions is such a trusted brand. It is subscribed by all the major, STM industry organizations and institutions and everything, in terms of giving access to its data. So I think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm so happy that author verification in the personal verification is now also inclusive of editors and peer reviewers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole issue of author identification isn't a new issue. It's been around for years and years and years and years, and it's never really been fully fixed. You've got some very, very good things like ORCID, where you can assign what you think is a unique number to a particular reviewer, but even that can be abused. You see cases of people having multiple ORCID IDs, for example. The fact that this is coming from Dimensions, who are increasingly trusted organization in terms of providing some of the very best tools for the research communication process, I think really sets a positive mark. But as you say yourself, KK, we're doing a lot of work ourselves around this, and we'll be introducing services to support this very soon.
Right. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for that. And moving on to the next story, it is related to it, and it is titled Introducing COSIG, the collection of open science integrity guides, and it's published in Reese Richardson's blog, and I'll read out my notes from it. So this is obviously a community-led resource for post-publication peer review, and it aims to improve the integrity of scientific literature by providing open source guides. Now, the project seems to address the issue of scientific paper retraction and the rise of paper mills, which we have been talking about for the last 76 episodes. COSIG is designed to expand participation in post-publication peer review, and the guides cover various topics including biology, material science, computer science, and it is open for contributions and suggestions to enhance its content. And COSIG was conceived by a group of experts and is supported by numerous contributors. An excellent initiative is what I thought, and I think such initiatives should always be there, especially in the context of open science, and that is a way probably the world is going, especially vis-a-vis transformative agreements and basically open science, at least for the reader's perspective. Your thoughts?
Yeah, again, another initiative to support the process of managing research integrity. We provide research integrity checks ourselves. Excuse me, someone trying to ring me. We support research integrity checks ourselves on a regular basis through tools like Inago Reports, for example. But this is I mean, as you know, KK, I've been working in journal publishing for over 25 years, one way or another. And even then, we were talking about what kind of resources can be made available, what kind of initiatives can be made available in order to allow reviewers, allow authors, researchers to kind of comment on a review on a publication after it's been reviewed. It doesn't undermine necessarily the peer review process, but I think what it does, if you can manage those community channels in the right way, it can further thinking and creative thinking and perhaps critical thinking around a given topic. So no, I think as something that is going to and a community-driven initiative that can bring that together will be an interesting thing to watch.
Right. And moving on to a related topic, I mean, the reason why we are talking about research integrity is that, I guess the bad actors in the research field are using research papers to just build fame and not contributing enough to science. And one measure that one can use to see if contributions to science are made is by checking whether a research is reproducible. And there is a reproducibility crisis. And so this is a guest post from Retraction Watch, which basically comments on this, and it's titled NIH-funded replication studies are not the answer to the reproducibility crisis in preclinical research. So it argues, the author argues that replication studies are not the best solution for the crisis, even though Trump and the executive orders have stated that for improving reproducibility, you need to have such studies. And the author believes replication studies are impractical and inefficient, especially in the context of budget cuts. What we need is high quality science to be published. And I think that the general sort of slant is that peer review, which is the which upholds the quality of the science that is eventually being published, that should be the focus. And maybe all sorts of integrity screening and quality screening at the editorial and peer review, maybe even with the community involvement. And I have to say, even though I would have argued that reproducibility studies are necessary, but it should not be the only focus. And I think the industry should focus on getting it right at the stages of editorial and peer review. What are your thoughts?
Reproducibility is one stage of the process.
Yeah.
Reproducibility is that community verification of the research that's being done. You still need that creative input. You still need to have that experimental, theoretical thinking, that all those elements that happen long before you get to that reproducibility point. It's probably long even before the actual experiments start or the testing starts.
Right.
Anything that threatens that funding, I think, is highly damaging to future research.
Yeah, and interestingly,
including preclinical research.
Right. One of the things that the author mentions, the publish or perish culture, is a reason why some of the poorer quality research is happening. So maybe we should work on such things. And look, I think it is a critique on the Trump administration in general, and the fact that you cannot, if suppose you think that, let's say, medical studies are not high quality, which I disagree with generally. I mean, you cannot sort of broad brushstroke such a thing, but if at all you need that, you can do other steps and not just have more preclinical reproducibility checks.
Well, as that at the end of the day, if the research is not of any particular quality, then that's an issue around the decision to provide funding.
Right.
Like much anything else, the review process in determining whether that research is worthy of funding has to come into question. But I think it's very difficult to sort of assign a value measure to research, whether it's good or bad research. It's research in its own right. It's up to the individual researcher to determine whether that research, those conclusions support their own conclusions.
Right. So it's a nice, I guess, comic. It's been done, but I don't think it's been redone. Anyway, so moving on to the next.
I like it.
Moving on to the next, which is also related to medical research. This is very interesting, and it's been talked about in many newsletters already. This is, I guess it's a blog post, or it's a Substack post by James Heathers, and it's titled Introducing the Medical Evidence Project. So obviously James Heathers, as this is an announcement for that, this project aims to identify and correct bad or fake medical evidence that contaminates treatment guidelines and harms people. The project is being funded by Open Philanthropy and will be run out of the Center of Scientific Integrity, which I think we have talked about in the past in a previous episode. The
I think
project,
we have, yeah.
yeah, will focus on finding and reporting medical evidence issues with a goal of immediate reporting and disclosure. It aims to hire, the project aims to hire an editor and a bunch of analysts to help with the process, and will prioritize cases that have put the potential to harm people or cause people harm. The project will also accept tips from the public or the community, and is looking for donations, etc. So, but anyway, in general, this is a good step, and we've been talking about research and integrity sleuths and some, I think, I forget, some internship programs that we discussed.
That was the retraction watch.
Yes,
Just appointed
yes.
someone. There was a UK university. Was it Birmingham? I think I can't remember. Who have just appointed a new chair
Yeah.
in research integrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, look, organization, or I guess I don't know, organizations like us offer these third-party checks to improve the accuracy, to critically review, for example, peer review, and we are also
Yeah.
offering things like research integrity checks for publishers that to help them do things at a scale with more efficiency. So I'm sure that this sort of a thing will also help. Any other thoughts on this, Tony?
Absolutely. I think the kind of checks that are required are, I won't say infinite, but they are substantive. And also those checks will vary from organisation to organisation in terms of how important, how relevant, how much focus there should be on those checks. So what we're trying to do is develop tools which will allow us to build these kind of queries easily. So somebody who needs a check, to provide what is a check that's unique to them, including here, for example, then these tools can support that. So I welcome anything that's of improves research integrity in particularly medical publishing, and I wish it every success.
Right, moving on to the next story. It is by Nature. It's a news article titled "Science Integrity Project Will Root Out Bad Medical Papers and Tell Everyone." Hold on, just let me yeah. So this is also
This is
related
the
to this.
same paper.
Yeah, it is the same thing. I mean, this is the sort of related news story, and it covers more sort of some of the details that I read out earlier are from this. So I guess we don't need to stay here, and we can move on to the next one. This is
All I will say is that the article it quotes Elizabeth Bick from Retraction Watch, and if Elizabeth thinks this is a good thing, then I think everyone should think this is a good thing. I fully respect her knowledge on this area.
All right, moving on to the next one. It is it's a news article from Nature titled "Integrity Index Flags Universities with High Retraction Rates." So this basically, this index, I do not think I have come across it before, but it highlights universities with high retraction rates, and it's developed by Lockman Maho. It focuses on research quality rather than quantity, and it flags institutions with many retractions and publications in delisted journals. And the aim is to address issues where universities prioritize quality over quantity, the same sort of publish or perish culture. And it's considered to be a good tool for improving the university ranking systems. And there are some universities from the Middle East that have already been listed, which I'm not naming. And there are obviously, the article also includes opinions about such an index, and it is not meant to sort of identify, but it is sort of helps us to identify systemic sort of research integrity concerns that an institution can address. And I think it is a good time, considering so many different types of research integrity exist and they need flagging. And maybe such an index will help institutions to sort of assess themselves and put sort of necessary frameworks, or I guess measures, to control any flags that arise out of them. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and you've got something which is sort of addressing a perfect storm. The perfect storm of there's still a prevalent publish or perish culture in many research economies. Very, very many countries still have a strong focus on this, and in the UK we've kind of moved away from this a little bit in the last couple of research assessment exercise framework exercises. You've got that, and also kind of a lack of knowledge, or a full lack of knowledge in terms of the publications that support the research that your area, what you're working in. So authors end up publishing papers because they have to, because that's the only way their careers can proceed, in journals which are at best predatory. And they look, because they've got good names in the board list, in their editorial boards, and they look legitimate. Can convince the author this is a legitimate journal, so they kind of fall between the trap.
Right.
in that trap of two things. So I do feel sorry for those
Mm.
for those authors who've
Right.
felt out of that.
Yeah, this is, I think we have already covered this story, but you can see many of these institutions with flags, especially retractions, are from the Asia and East Asia and the Middle East and Africa. Unfortunately, because I think at the institutional level, I think research integrity and ethics education is probably lacking in these geographies. And some of the things that Tony, you and I have been talking about vis-a-vis the responsible use of AI movement involves training and courses for researchers in these
Yeah.
areas, not just these areas, but this could be the focus. This could be the starting point, right?
And just to contradict myself for a second, I said something earlier on about there being no sort of measure of quality. You know, even 20 years ago, there was probably only sort of 5,000 or 6,000 journals in the world. We've now got over 30,000 research journals. You know, so we've got 5, 6, 10 times the number of journals. Have we got 5, 6, 10 times the number of high quality research papers being published? We haven't. It's the same number of research papers,
Right.
high quality research papers that lead to the same number of Nobel Prizes and other prizes. So there's more research going out there, which 20 or 30 years ago would have had no chance of being published because for a variety of factors. So
Yeah.
do you want to have because for a variety of factors? So
Yeah.
do you want to have it's have a question of having one's cake and eating it. You
Yeah.
don't want to discourage research. You also want to
Right. I get your point. I think it's partially, look, the Nobel Prizes are still limited. I mean, you cannot win, let's say if the research volume,
sure.
yeah, that can be addressed by improving, obviously, fixing the peer review crisis, the volume crisis, and, providing some
to a
sort of,
certain extent, yeah.
yeah.
But services like these, the last two papers that you talked about, identifying
Yeah.
bad actors, identifying bad, false authors is a positive thing.
Yeah, talking about false authorship, nice segue, Tony. Thanks for that. So this is a career feature published in Nature, and it is titled "Authorship for Sale." Nature investigates how paper mills work. So the title is relatively self-explanatory. So what are paper mills? They basically sell authorship slots on papers for money, and this practice thrives due to the pressure on researchers to publish or the publish or perish culture. And there are some researchers, in this, the authors have interviewed some people who have already had such experiences. And basically, paper mills manipulate manuscripts and peer reviews, and these services are often found, or rather discovered, on platforms, unfortunately, like Facebook and WhatsApp. Because the last time I heard authorship being sold was on a regular print newspaper with a WhatsApp screenshot of a researcher being asked, okay, do you want a name, and you just have to pay $250 or something like that. So it was very crazy to see that. And the article basically highlights the ethical issues and the pressures driving this trend, and many researchers feel forced to use these services because of institutional demands. And this article calls for awareness and strict regulation to combat this issue. And to be fair, Tony, I would have to say institutions also have to play a huge role in ensuring research integrity and making sure that researchers are not forced, even though they are doing the wrong thing, they are being forced to do the wrong thing as per the institutions. So
I know this rather simplifies thing. I said earlier on about this huge publish or perish culture, and that's a lot of that is still driven by of course, that's driven by the institutions who themselves are being measured by funding agencies. How much high quality research has your paper, have your authors published, your researchers published, in what sort of journals have they published in? Talk to me about volumes in terms of where they're being volumed. Whereas in increasingly in like the UK, for example, the focus is much more about research impact rather than research volume. So there needs to be a move away from volume. There needs to be a move towards encouraging open research, and only publishing that research when it's ready, when it's of the right caliber, and not being afraid to wait before you actually submit your paper.
Right. And I think we are at the last main story, and this is an STM Publishing News article. It's titled Elsevier unveils rigorous evaluation framework to mitigate risk in generative AI clinical decision support tool. That's quite a mouthful. But Elsevier is actually, I think, one of the leaders, including Wiley, in terms of providing, I guess, AI assistance in the context of medical research and pharma research and everything. So this new framework is for AI clinical tools and aims to assess performance and safety of generative AI in healthcare. The framework evaluates AI responses on 5 dimensions: query comprehension, helpfulness, correctness, completeness, and potential harm. And clinical.
Well, this is the framework we were talking about earlier on, that COSIG framework.
No,
Um,
it is related to it, but not quite this. There's another article. But anyway, go on. Do you have any thoughts?
no, no, please go.
Yeah.
You carry on. Sorry.
So, Clinical Key AI, Elsevier's platform, will use this framework to ensure accurate and relevant information. And a panel of 41 physicians and pharmacists tested this Clinical Key AI, and it showed basically high correctness and helpfulness rating. So basically, it's a very good tool. I am aware that there are a lot of generative AI applications within the, I guess, clinical practicing doctors world, in especially in terms of transcribing an interview with the patient, for example, a diagnostic examination and the related notes and everything. And but the responsibility of ensuring accuracy lies with the physicians. And I think in a previous episode, Tony, maybe 10 episodes or so ago, we were talking about the increased burden on physicians to correct the AI responses. That should not be the case, right? As in, clinicians are already overworked, and AI
Yeah.
should assist, and it's actually increasing the workload. So from that point of view, Clinical Key AI and Elsevier's framework should help, and it's very, very much in line with our own principles in terms of developing AI tools, in terms of using AI guardrails, and also the responsible use of AI movement that we've just kickstarted, and we are collaborating with publishers on.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's nothing more I can add. You've said it all.
You can add, you can let people know how they can find out more about the responsible use of
Oh,
AI.
that's right. So again, if you go to the inago.com website and search for the responsible AI movement, there's a page dedicated to this in terms of how we want everyone within the research communication space to understand what good ethical use and responsible use of AI should look like, to encourage a framework to be developed in terms of how it should be used and how it should be acknowledged and how it should be communicated.
Excellent. Thank you. And we are on to our quick hits, starting with a couple of stories related to ONOS. ACS Publications joins India's One Nation, One Subscription initiative. Now, I'm sure that Tony, you're thinking you have already read the story, but I believe that some part of the portfolio was missing in the ONOS list, and ACS has now completely sort of been integrated to it. So if people are unaware what ONOS stands for, it's One Nation, One Subscription policy, and it includes 30 international journal publishers signing up with an agreement, 3-year agreement with the Indian government to provide institutional access across India to all the researchers. And so it will save institutional subscription costs, and it is a transformative agreement after all, and it is changing the life of a researcher in India, and it's a good
It's more than just saving subscription. Sorry to interrupt you, KK. It's
Yeah.
more than just saving subscription costs. I mean, what it's doing is opening up access to many hundreds of institutions in India who up until this point probably wouldn't have had access to these resources. So it's kind of leveling the research knowledge playing field.
Yes.
I think it's a wonderful initiative that the Indian government has introduced.
And in a related story, this is from STM Publishing News, KGL AccuComms facilitates inclusion of 5 leading US publishers in India's ONOS initiative. So, as the title indicates, 5 publishers. So, these participating publishers are from the US, and they are these annual reviews: APS, AIAA, ASM, and SPI. But do you know the expansions of these? Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
These.
Those 5 publishers.
Yeah.
So in a sense, for me, KK, this is kind of it's an interesting story, but it's a bit of a non-story. I mean, what this is doing is promoting the fact that a sales agent has represented these 5 organizations in doing something which ONOS wanted to happen. They just made it, indirectly made it possible. But there's been some efforts involved there. So all credit to KJ AccuComms for helping to facilitate that. But the real story is the fact that increasingly high quality content coming from the world's leading research societies and the world leading research publishers is going to be available to Indian researchers. So again, congratulations to KJ AccuComms for representing these organizations. But the true winner here is the researcher in India.
Right. And Tony, I mean, we've been talking about it. If suppose publishers have to sort of rethink their strategy, especially in India and maybe in China, and if suppose they're looking for any consultancy with localized expertise, they are obviously free to consult you vis-a-vis India please.
well, they wouldn't necessarily consult me, but certainly we would consult colleagues who have a deeper understanding of that sector, and particularly the same would apply to China, even more so in China, where we have long-established China expert services. So if you need guidance or advice in terms of how you might present or represent yourself in those markets, then I'd be happy to introduce you to the relevant people at China Expert Services.
Right. And moving on to the second last quick hit. This is a very interesting, it's a sort of speculative fiction piece by Ian Mulvaney. And, it's a bunch of, I guess, statements that could come true or could not be true, or could not come true. So basically, it's fun to sort of read and to look at it from the perspective of where our industry is heading. And some of the things among this list that I sort of thought were interesting to discuss. One, data is often more valuable than the research paper itself. So the research data on which the research paper is basically drafted is more valuable than the paper itself. Do you agree or do you disagree?
Absolutely, you can't do the research paper without the data to support it. No data, no research.
Yeah.
No research paper.
Yeah, and so this is that point, and there is a point about identity verification is almost absent in, at least at that level, is absent in scholarly in the industry right now. AI might write better papers than humans. What do you think?
Well, might write, but anyone can put a conditional clause in there. I think it's possible at some point that in certain subject areas the AI might write, and what you define as better, of course, is subjective.
Right.
No. Let me just stop you for a second. I mean, this isn't just another person's opinion. Ian Mulvaney is very well known. He's the actual head of technology for the British Medical Association, the British Medical Journal. So he's a very much a thought leader in this space.
Right.
So clearly these are issues that he's thinking himself around the future of the industry itself, but of course also around the impact on medical publishing.
Right.
This is a very knowledgeable guy.
Yeah, as a sort of as a what is it, a repartee to the previous statement, human reviews remain invaluable, and peer review is not a unified single unified process. I mean that we all know. There are so many different types of peer reviews. But the importance of peer review, human reviews is what Ian highlights. Then, Tony, publishing technology lags behind modern standards. I could not agree.
Oh, I think there he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
I think you think about the way people engage with social media today, particularly sort of millennials and whatever, and the younger sub 35 user groups, and how they engage with content. Journals haven't necessarily kept up with, or publishing technology generally hasn't kept up with that.
Yeah.
I think there are going to be some interesting developments over the next few years in terms of how people access this content and why people access and when they access and where they access this content. I mean, look at China, for example. How WeChat is used in China. I mean, it's very, very different the way that's being used for, not just for, but the way people use TikTok or social messaging over here. But they're using it for training. They're using it to access content. They're using it pretty much for every aspect of their lives.
Right.
And yet we don't really necessarily see that with the Western-based social media. So I think there has to be some innovation in order to catch up.
Yeah, even though Ian says that publishing is stuck in the 90s, but many of the innovations are not financially sustainable. That's an interesting take. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not always sustainable because the cost of maintaining that 90s-based publishing tech is very high.
Okay.
And we're still talking about PDFs after all. It's and when there was a PDF invented.
Well, I guess 40 years, 50 years ago. I don't know. I think
absolutely. Yeah, right. In the 80s, probably.
Yeah. All right. I actually have 3 more quick hits. The first one: Springer Healthcare and In Science Communications rebrand as Springer Health Plus. So basically, it is to better align with their offerings for the global medical community, and this brand would provide innovative medical communications, education, and training programs. But it's interesting to note from the context of medical research communication and our own Inago Life Sciences services that we offer to medical researchers, as well as obviously pharma companies, as well as health organizations.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Springer have been aware of this for some time. The importance of having a service that can provide us medical education services. So it's an interesting, if not wholly unsurprising, development.
Okay, couple of stories related to Clarivate. Clarivate's and CAPES or CAPES, how do you pronounce it?
CAPES.
CAPES. CAPES. Expand landmark partnerships to power research and innovation across Brazil. It offers expanded data access, increases coverage by 57%, reaching over 400 institutions, and obviously making things easier for the Brazilian researcher. Any thoughts on this, Tony?
No, again, CAPES has gone through some quite difficult times over the last 10 to 15 years with funding. So it's great to see the sort of step back and improve access to good quality research tools across Brazil. They had struggled for some time,
right,
in terms of maintaining some of their multi-year agreements, but now they've obviously been able to catch up.
Yeah. Now I invite you, Tony, to join me in flying over Gulf of America to go over to Canada because Clarivate.
I feel airsick.
Okay, where do you stand on Gulf of Mexico versus Gulf of America?
I absolutely know where I stand on the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay, fine. Well, I hope Trump is not listening to this. Okay, Clarivate partners with CRKN to further Canada's research goals. So, CRKN stands for Canadian Research Knowledge Network. This collaboration will last many years and benefit 55 Canadian universities, and it aims to improve access to the web of science, fostering research collaborations. So, it is sort of like a transformative agreement with some sort of waivers.
Yeah. Sorry, I think that's the thing that surprised me more than anything is the announcement. I just would have assumed this would be one of the first deals that any consortium does. Web of knowledge, web of science. The web of science is kind of the place where you get hold of things like the science citation index and or the research index, the impact factor.
Yeah,
and I've been told on more than one occasion that the first resource that a library buys and the last resource that it cancels are those tools. Yeah. So how has it taken this long to reach an agreement?
It's probably a renewal. I mean, STM Publishing News is after all news, so it has to cover. But all I wanted to bring to the attention to our audience
is entered a multi-year partnership. Yeah. I know, but so good luck. Every research university in the world, we know the impact factor is flawed, and it has its criticisms, but it is still regarded as the measuring stick, whatever that, the milestone, or the main way to measure the quality of a research journal through the number of times a journal is cited.
Right. The impact factor might be flawed, but that is not the case with PubShorts because we have not been flawed for the last 77 episodes. No. And so for those who are interested, who are tuning in for the first time, where can they find more about PubShorts and how can they send feedback, Tony?
You're here already on PubShorts, or if you're watching this, so please feel free to like or our PubShorts channel on YouTube. You can contact me directly at tonio@anago.com, and KK and I are both available on LinkedIn. So if you've got any suggestions for future topics or ideas for future episodes of PubShorts, you can contact us either at tonio@anago.com or via LinkedIn, or just leave a message on the YouTube channels.
Excellent.
On the PubShorts YouTube channel.
Yes, and if you drop a message tomorrow, then Tony may not be able to answer it immediately because he is attending an Iron Maiden concert.
Yeah, well, I may be able to attend it. I won't be able to listen to it because I'll be deaf. Yes, I've got an Iron Maiden concert coming up quite soon. That's right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Going with my son.
Excellent, excellent. And where is it? In
Birmingham, in the UK.
All right.
It's their first UK show, I think.
Yeah.
They've been touring in Europe for some time, and this is their first UK show.
Do you buy merchandise?
I used to buy a lot of merchandise. I've kind of stopped because I have boxes and boxes of T-shirts that I never wear. But I generally buy an Iron Maiden T-shirt because they're always so well designed.
Right, and
I know people who've got 100 Iron Maiden T-shirts from one from every show that they've ever attended, and they're all different.
All right.
I went to a show in 2008, for example, which was at this will mean nothing to people who don't play rugby, but it was at Twickenham Rugby Stadium, and they designed a shirt specifically for that one show and only for that one show. So you couldn't get it anywhere else of the Iron Maiden figure, scoring a try in rugby. It was a brilliant T-shirt. I might wear that tomorrow.
Yeah, there is a rugby league that I think has started this year in India. Would you believe it?
I really don't believe it. No, because I know how dominant cricket is in India. I mean, I had even 3 weeks ago, colleagues from India asking me, "Am I looking forward to the India versus England Test?" And my answer was, "Is there one?"
5. There are 5, and we're
going to. I didn't realize there was a Test series coming up. So much shows how little I follow the Test.
Yeah. So with that wonderful conversation about music, concerts, merchandise, rugby, and cricket, we end this episode of PubShorts, which is supposed to be about the STM publishing industry and all the innovation. But that's okay. This is the reason why PubShorts has been a success for the last 77 episodes. And until the next episode, this is Dr. KK signing off for Tony.
Yeah, and hopefully in my next episode, I'll be wearing my Sure Bazaar T-shirt.
Well. We'll talk about that soon.
We'll talk about that one day.
Yeah. Okay. Until the next time, this is Dr. KK signing off. We will see you in the next one. Bye, Tony.
See you next one.